Captain Jack Mercer had lived a life most could only dream of. Or maybe, in his case, a life that most wouldn't dare to imagine. For decades, he soared above Earth, the skies his battlefield and his fighter jet the only companion he could count on. He defended his home, his people, and his honor. But after years of warfare, he found himself retreating to a quiet corner of the world, longing for the peace he'd fought so hard to protect. Days were filled with the hum of nature, and nights passed under silent stars that no longer reminded him of the violent battles he once faced. One evening, as Jack sat on his porch, watching the last hues of sunlight fade from the sky, his peace was broken. A strange signal crackled through an old communication device he hadn't touched in years. At first, he ignored it, assuming it was some cosmic interference, but the voice that followed was unmistakably urgent. A woman's voice, firm but trembling, beautiful yet desperate. She identified herself as Captain Zayla. Her ship was crippled, her crew fleeing from the iron grip of a ruthless galactic empire. Their only hope rested on an old frequency, and by some cosmic chance, Jack had been the one to hear it. As he listened, something stirred deep within him. That familiar sense of duty, buried beneath the weight of all those years, began to surface. But he shook it off. He had promised himself never to return to that life. Too many losses. Too many scars, both visible and unseen. He had done his part. Hadn't he earned the right to leave the chaos behind? But Zayla's voice haunted him. She spoke of a threat that spanned galaxies, a force so unstoppable that it threatened not just her people but the very balance of the universe. Her crew was untrained, unfit for combat. They carried something vital, something that could stop a war before it consumed the stars. And they were alone, with no one else to turn to. Her voice quivered as she said it. "If you're listening, you're our last hope." Jack rose from his chair, his hand lingering over the communicator. He closed his eyes and felt the weight of his past pressing down. The faces of his fallen comrades flashed before him, each one a reminder of the price he had paid for peace. How many times had he been in their shoes, hoping for someone, anyone, to answer his calls for help? How many times had he been saved by someone who refused to turn away? He didn't want to go back. Not to the fight. Not to the loss. But could he live with himself if he didn't? What if he was truly their only chance? It wasn't just about the alien crew. It wasn't even about the Galactic Empire. This was about something deeper, something that had always driven Jack. The belief that no matter the odds, no matter the danger, some things were worth fighting for. And sometimes, the most important battles weren't the ones we chose, but the ones that chose us. He took a deep breath and made his decision. There was no turning back now. His fighter jet, stored away like an old relic, would once again soar through the stars. Jack suited up, each piece of armor and gear feeling like a familiar second skin. As he prepared to leave, he glanced at the sky, now filled with the countless stars he once thought he'd never see again up close. This wasn't just another mission. This was the one. The one that would define his legacy. The one that would remind the universe what humanity was capable of when pushed to its limits. Captain Jack Mercer was about to answer the call. Not for glory. Not for revenge. But because, deep down, he knew that some fights were worth returning for. And this, without a doubt, was one of them. Jack's arrival was nothing short of timely. The moment he entered the vicinity, the alien ship was already being torn apart by enemy fire, its energy shields flickering, and its hull barely holding together. Without hesitation, Jack engaged, his instincts taking over as if he had never left the cockpit. His fighter jet danced between the stars, moving with a precision that seemed almost impossible. He took down enemy vessels one after another, his years of experience shining through in every calculated maneuver. It wasn't a battle to him, it was second nature. Inside the alien ship, Captain Zayla and her crew watched in stunned silence. They had expected, at best, a capable but unremarkable pilot, an outdated Earth military relic. But what they witnessed was a master at work, bending the laws of combat to his will. Each enemy ship that fell added to their disbelief. They had been wrong about humans, about Jack. Their assumptions of Earth's primitive technology and lack of galactic experience melted away with every precise strike he delivered. When the skies finally cleared, and the last enemy ship exploded into nothingness, Zayla could barely find the words to express her astonishment. Jack's fighter docked alongside their damaged ship, and moments later, he stepped aboard. The alien crew stood in awe of him, not just as a pilot but as a warrior. Zayla approached him, her composure barely masking her overwhelming gratitude. In her voice, there was respect, something Jack had long learned to read between the lines. She introduced herself, speaking on behalf of her crew, who remained speechless in his presence. But there was no time for pleasantries. The urgency of the situation quickly overshadowed any admiration. As Zayla explained, they were carrying intelligence that could stop the Galactic Empire in its tracks, a war-ending device hidden within their ship. The problem was, her crew had never been trained for combat, let alone the kind of relentless pursuit they were under. Their mission had been to flee and hide, to protect the secret at all costs, not to fight their way through enemy lines. Jack's mind raced as he listened, piecing together their dilemma. The ship was in dire condition. Damage to the hull was critical, and their defense systems were crippled. Worse yet, Zayla's crew lacked even the basic tactical knowledge needed to survive another encounter. Jack realized they didn't stand a chance on their own. He couldn't just leave them to their fate, not after what he had just seen, not after realizing how crucial their mission was. Their survival, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy, now rested on his shoulders. He didn't waste any time. Jack quickly assessed the ship's capabilities, devising a strategy to guide them through the hostile territory that lay ahead. It was clear that the Empire wouldn't give up so easily. The pursuit would continue, and the next wave of attacks would be even more ruthless. But with Jack's knowledge of space combat and his ability to read the battlefield, there was hope. He laid out a plan, one that involved constant movement, using the terrain of the stars, asteroids, gas clouds, and debris fields, to their advantage. It would be risky, and repairs needed to be made on the fly, but it was their only chance. The crew, still in shock from the recent battle, listened intently as Jack took command of the situation. They trusted him, and for the first time since their journey began, they believed they might survive. As they prepared to make their next move, Zayla couldn't help but marvel at Jack's calm demeanor. This was more than just skill. It was a lifetime of battle-hardened experience, the kind that only came from surviving countless encounters with death. She realized now why humans, though isolated from much of the galaxy, were not to be underestimated. With every second ticking away, Jack guided the ship, weaving them through hostile territories while evading the Empire's forces. The repairs began, but time was running out. Jack knew they had to keep moving if they were going to make it. Jack knew that if they were going to survive, the alien crew had to be more than just passengers. They had to learn how to fight, how to defend themselves. As they drifted through the galaxy, barely ahead of their pursuers, Jack took it upon himself to teach them the art of combat. These weren't hardened soldiers. They were scientists, diplomats, and engineers, unprepared for the brutality of war. But Jack, ever the patient teacher, broke it down for them. He started with the basics: how to handle the controls in a dogfight, how to evade incoming fire, and what to do in an emergency. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about survival. At first, the crew fumbled through the drills, overwhelmed by the complexity of the maneuvers. But slowly, they began to improve. Jack's years of experience guided them through their mistakes. He taught them how to anticipate an enemy's move, how to outthink rather than outgun their opponent. With each lesson, the crew grew more confident, and Jack saw the potential in them. They were quick learners, and although they lacked his combat instincts, they had something else: an unwavering determination to survive. As the days passed, Jack found himself spending more time with Captain Zayla. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Beneath her calm, composed exterior, Jack sensed a quiet strength. She confided in him about the weight she carried as the leader of her crew, the responsibility of safeguarding not just their lives but their mission. The Empire's oppressive rule had crushed her people for generations, and now they were fighting back in the only way they knew how: by running. but Jack's presence had given her hope. She admired his courage, his willingness to risk his life for them, and the bond between them grew stronger with each conversation. Zayla spoke of the hardship her people endured under the Empire's reign. Their world, once a thriving center of knowledge and peace, had been reduced to a shadow of its former self. Jack listened, and though their histories were different, he understood the pain of seeing something you loved destroyed by forces beyond your control. In Zayla, he saw a kindred spirit, someone who had also fought battles she never asked for but couldn't walk away from. The respect between them deepened, and Jack knew he had found not just an ally, but a friend. The ship, however, was still a mess. It needed repairs that couldn't wait if they hoped to keep outrunning the Empire's forces. Jack, ever the pragmatist, got to work. His technical skills, honed over years of patching up his own fighter, came into play. He found creative solutions to problems the crew hadn't even noticed. When a power surge nearly fried the navigation systems, Jack rigged a workaround that not only fixed the issue but made the system more efficient. Zayla and her crew watched in awe as Jack, with a few simple tools and a lot of ingenuity, saved them from what could have been disaster after disaster. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was necessary, and Jack's quick thinking proved invaluable. Then, one day, while searching for parts in the lower decks, Jack stumbled upon a hidden compartment he hadn't seen before. Inside, he found something that caught him off guard, a device, secured and hidden from plain view. At first, he didn't understand its significance, but as he examined it, the truth became clear. This was no ordinary piece of technology. It was a weapon, or rather, the key to neutralizing the Empire's most dangerous weapon. And it was something only a human could activate. Zayla, realizing Jack had discovered their secret, explained everything. The device they carried could end the war, could destroy the Empire's deadliest weapon. But it required a human's biological signature to function. For years, her people had sought out humans, knowing they were the only ones who could unlock the device's potential. That's why they had sent the distress signal to Earth. They had hoped, beyond hope, that someone like Jack would answer. Jack now understood the full weight of their mission. He wasn't just helping them survive, he was the key to their success. It wasn't a role he had asked for, but now that he knew the truth, there was no turning back. The galaxy's fate rested on his shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, Jack felt the pull of destiny once more. As the truth came to light, Jack found himself grappling with something far bigger than he ever imagined. Captain Zayla's words hit him like a punch to the gut. Their mission wasn't just about survival or escaping the clutches of the Empire. They had been watching Earth, watching humanity, for generations. Hidden among the stars, her people had quietly observed, waiting for the right moment to reach out. Jack's involvement had never been a coincidence. They believed in something that most of the galaxy had dismissed for centuries. Humanity, despite its fledgling presence in the wider universe, held the potential to be the greatest force for good. Zayla's voice was steady, her conviction unshakable as she explained. The device they carried, the one Jack had accidentally uncovered, could change everything. The Empire, as unstoppable as they seemed, had a weakness, a fatal flaw in their most devastating weapon. The device was designed to exploit that weakness, to neutralize the Empire's most destructive technology. But there was a catch, and it all hinged on Jack. Only a human could unlock the device's full power. Not because of any advanced technical skill or military prowess, but because of humanity's unique biology. The combination of Earth's harsh evolutionary forces, their adaptability, their resilience, it had forged something in humans that no other species possessed. Jack stood there, absorbing the weight of Zayla's revelation. He hadn't been chosen because he was the best pilot, or because of his years of combat experience. He had been chosen simply because he was human. It was both humbling and terrifying. He had spent his life fighting battles he understood, battles he could win with his skill and strategy. But this was something different. This was fate, destiny even, and it had thrust him into a role he never asked for. As Zayla spoke, the gravity of the situation settled over Jack like a suffocating weight. The future of the galaxy was tied to him, to humanity, in ways he could have never imagined. For a moment, he felt small, almost insignificant against the vastness of the stars and the Empire's reach. But the feeling didn't last. Jack wasn't one to back down, not when it mattered. He had never been driven by glory or power, just a simple, stubborn sense of duty. And now, duty was calling louder than ever. Before Jack could fully process it all, their situation took a sharp turn. The Empire had found them. The distant shimmer of enemy ships lit up the screens, a brutal reminder of the danger closing in. There was no time to reflect, no time to question. The fleet was bearing down on them, and Zayla's crew scrambled into action. The countdown to battle had begun, and every second mattered. Jack could see the fear in their eyes, the uncertainty of what was coming. But there was no room for fear, not now. He had a choice to make, and it was one that would define not just his future, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders, and for a brief moment, doubt crept in. What if he failed? What if humanity wasn't ready for this? What if they had been wrong about him all along? But doubt was a luxury Jack couldn't afford. He had faced impossible odds before, stared down death more times than he could count. This wasn't any different. It was just bigger. He wasn't just fighting for himself, or for Earth, or even for Zayla and her crew. He was fighting for something larger than life, something that stretched across the stars. And that meant one thing: he couldn't fail. As the Empire's fleet closed in, Jack felt the weight of responsibility solidify into resolve. There was no turning back now. The battle ahead would be brutal, and the outcome uncertain, but Jack had made his choice. He would lead them into the fight, not just as a pilot, but as the key to their survival. The crew looked to him, their faces filled with a mixture of hope and fear. Jack met their eyes, one by one, and nodded. He was ready, and so were they. The Empire might have the numbers, the firepower, and the ruthlessness, but they didn't have what Jack had. They didn't have the strength of humanity. They didn't have him. And that was enough. The final battle was upon them, and Jack knew that whatever happened next, he would give it everything he had. Because some things were worth fighting for, some things were worth dying for. And this, without a doubt, was one of them. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the crew prepared for what lay ahead. Jack moved with a quiet intensity, his mind calculating every possible scenario, every move the enemy might make. He'd faced battles before, but this was different. This was a fight for something far bigger than he'd ever been a part of. The alien crew looked to him for leadership, and he delivered, blending their advanced technology with the tried-and-true tactics he'd perfected over a lifetime of combat. He made quick decisions, knowing that one wrong move could cost them everything. As the Empire's fleet appeared on the horizon, Jack gave the order. It was time. The battle that would decide not just their survival but the future of countless worlds was about to begin. The first wave of enemy fire hit hard, shaking their ship to its core. The Empire had them outgunned, their ships more advanced, their numbers overwhelming. At first, it seemed like they wouldn't stand a chance. The alien crew, despite Jack's training, was still untested in real combat, and the sheer scale of the battle threatened to crush their morale. But Jack held them together. His voice, calm and steady, cut through the chaos, directing them with precision. He anticipated the enemy's moves, turning the tide with every maneuver. Each time it seemed like they were on the verge of being overwhelmed, Jack pulled them back from the brink. He flew his fighter through impossible odds, dodging enemy fire with a grace that left even the Empire's elite pilots struggling to keep up. The battle was brutal, each moment more intense than the last. The ship's defenses were pushed to their limits, and the crew was stretched thin. But Jack's experience shone through. He fought not just with skill, but with an understanding of battle that came from years of surviving the impossible. Slowly, the balance began to shift. Where the Empire had once seemed unstoppable, Jack's leadership turned their advantage into vulnerability. The crew fought with a new determination, rallying behind him as they realized that they had a real chance. And then came the critical moment. The Empire's flagship, armed with their deadliest weapon, was bearing down on them. Jack knew that this was it, the moment that would decide everything. He activated the device, the one only he could wield. As the alien technology hummed to life, the weapon aboard the Empire's flagship sputtered, then went dark. Confusion rippled through the enemy ranks. The one thing they had relied on, the weapon they had believed would make them invincible, was gone. The Empire's forces hesitated, thrown into disarray. That was all Jack needed. He pressed the attack, leading the charge as the alien crew followed his every command. The enemy's once formidable fleet began to crumble, their confidence shattered. Victory was within reach, and Jack wasn't going to let it slip away. When the battle was finally over, the alien crew erupted in cheers. They had done it. Against all odds, they had survived, and more than that, they had won. Jack stood at the center of it all, their unlikely hero. Zayla approached him, her gratitude clear in her eyes. She offered him a place among them, to continue leading their forces in the fight against the Empire. It was a tempting offer, one that came with honor and responsibility. But Jack, ever the quiet warrior, shook his head. His job wasn't to stay. He had done what he needed to do, and now it was time for others to carry the torch. Humanity, he believed, was ready to take its place in the galaxy. Earth could no longer remain on the sidelines. The time had come for his people to step up, to become the protectors Zayla's people had always believed they could be. As the crew celebrated, Jack's thoughts turned to the future. This battle, this victory, was just the beginning. Humanity had proven its worth, not just to the alien crew but to the galaxy at large. No longer would Earth be seen as a small, insignificant planet on the outskirts of the galaxy. They had shown their strength, their resilience, and most importantly, their capacity to lead. In the end, Jack knew that the galaxy would never be the same. And neither would he. He had found something out there, something that had reignited the fire inside him. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and unknown dangers, but now humanity would face it with their heads held high. They weren't just part of the galaxy anymore, they were its future. And Jack, even in stepping back, knew that his legacy would live on in every human who took up the call. With the stars ahead and a new role for Earth on the horizon, Jack Mercer had done more than save a crew or win a battle. He had helped shape the future of humanity. And that, more than any victory, was what made this fight worth it.